is a much more just kind of resistant place, right? When I see people dying, and I'm not trying to fucking be a moralist on your show, right? When I see average people dying, who's to blame for that starts to matter less to me than stopping it.
That's great, but those people don't even agree with you. Like, no, like in history, like generally, depending on what you're talking about, those people don't even agree with you. Like the Vietnamese, the Viet Cong didn't want to just stop people dying. They wanted to expel the United States from Vietnam. In the Civil War, the North and the South didn't just want people to stop dying. You know, the North and the South fought for either a unified or an independent United States. So you're
talking about broad experience, right? You're talking about a nation state operating as a big organism, right? Yeah. Versus the singular experience of a soldier whose guts are falling out.
Yeah, that's fine. But singular experiences of people are also part of broader narratives.
Yeah, you put a bunch of singular experiences together to get a general national perspective.
Like define what those people are willing.
And the recent data from Pew Research Center shows that the majority of Ukrainians do want to negotiate, but only 29% of the country would be willing to make territorial concessions. And when you talk about territorial concessions, they mean any, meaning Crimea. So some of them might be like, okay, Crimea, 10% is only willing to, 10% is willing to give everything up. But maybe the rest is like, no, we just meant Crimea. No, we just maybe meant some parts of Donetsk. No, we did not mean Mariupol. We did not mean the rest of Kherson region. I'm from Kherson region. And so you get to a point where they're seeing the largest mass graves in Europe since World War II. They're seeing the human safari in Kherson. They're seeing the Bucha massacre. They're seeing all these atrocities. They're seeing the lack of civil liberties and the destruction of the Ukrainian national identity. And, those things matter to people. Freedom matters to people. This is the same thing I said earlier about selling out another person's freedom for their sake, as if you know better than them.
Do, right?
Like, of course, most Ukrainians want peace, but if the price of peace is too high, then you have the risk of A, just extending the war because all you've done is delayed the inevitable, or B, having an unjust peace that might not lead to peace at all. But even if it does, it might still contain many elements of violence. For example, repressionary executions, imprisonment of political prisoners, etc. I mean, I like the idea of the place that Paul is coming from. It's very, what's the word? Burning Man, yes. It's Burning Man foreign policy.
When morale for a country is high, like individuals are willing to die for their country to further some political belief or idea.
And then but there are times in history too where the worm turns, right? And people start to question.
Yeah, of course.
The validity of throwing their bodies upon the fucking
That's true.
fire.
Well, you left Vietnam, right? Yeah, especially because of the video.
Or in some instances, people will question it, not even because they would never fight, but under certain conditions. For example, a lot of Ukrainian defectors I know are like, I'm not joining, and it's not because I never would. I just don't trust our commanders. Or I don't trust that I'm not going to be stuffed in some Lada and sent to the front, because we don't have the armored vehicles. So, I mean, it could be a bunch of different factors.
There's the footage of a lot of people coming back injured and traumatized from war, yeah.
Right, and that and I know you understand, the political situation of Ukraine and Russia probably way better than I do, given how long you've covered it. But my understanding and the thing that matters to me more than the broader context is the million people in the dirt, dude. Fucking conscripts in the dirt.
That's fine.
Where did he get that number from? 1 million. I mean, you have to include every Russian dead and wounded, as well as probably every Ukrainian dead and wounded. When you say in the dirt, though, that assumes dead, and the majority of Ukrainians' casualties have been wounded. If you go by the Economist estimate, at the highest echelon, we're talking about 100,000 people on the Ukrainian side. And I mean, even if we went to a really high Russian estimate of like 300, 400 to 500,000, I mean, at best, you're getting like half of the number he's talking about when it comes to dead. Of course, we don't have the exact casualty numbers from Mariupol and other locations. I mean, we're working with big numbers here, and we're just throwing out a number. It's just, I don't know where he got the number from. And what he means by in the dirt. Because in the dirt, to me, would imply dead, not wounded.
Okay, but when you care about things like dead people, you're coming from the West, where that's like the most important thing to care about, right? Like just whether or not somebody's alive or dead is like the most important thing to care about. Okay, that's all that matters, because you have a country, you have a narrative, you have a story, you've got a government, you've got all these things that are working for you. Okay, and now all you have to think about is, okay, well, am I going to die or am I going to live? Or is this person going to die or live? And that's it. Okay, when you look at, and there's broader narratives here that even I don't understand, because I'm not a part of it, because I don't have that lived experience. So I'm very, very, very loosely about what people say. Okay, but Eastern Europe has fought for legitimacy. Places like Poland have fought for legitimacy to be included in the Western world for decades. Okay, this idea of breaking from the Soviet Union, of being your own country, like we are a people. We're more than just foreign fucking workers for British people. We're more than just temporary visa stays, to work in the summer and then go back to our shitty Eastern European countries. Like, we want to fight our corruption. We want to join the rest of the world. We want to be real countries with real people that are free of like corrupt and crazy leaders and bureaucrats that are trying to fuck us over constantly. Like, we're trying to become a thing. Okay. And Ukraine has been historically a country that's had a lot of issues with corruption and a lot of issues with trying to break from that stereotype of Eastern European destitution. And they were on the path to doing that. And they had a leader who was.
Destiny is getting much better at like describing aspects of the Ukrainian perspective. I don't know if it's because he's hanging out with Anna a lot more, if he's listening more to Ukrainian perspectives or what's going on, but he's getting better at it. And I do want to give that compliment, because I had a little sit down with Destiny after the Ben Shapiro conversation. I was like, dude, why were you so soft on him? These are the guys that used to be like, of course, they're enemy of America. Go in and fight. And now we're for a good cause. And he's like, well, I don't know. Like, go, like, grab him by the neck on this. Like, what's going on? And since then, I've seen him, I think, press more. And I appreciate that pressure. I appreciate that he's not just like letting other people frame the narrative or letting the narrative be unframed, letting that perspective be unstated. So this is a discussion about, a bunch of foreigners dividing up a map instead of like, wait, these people have to live in these communities, right? Like, hey, sell Palestine to the Arabs, sell Palestine to the Jews, sell Palestine to whoever, because you're not going to be there in 5 years anyway, so who cares? And it's not the way we should approach it. We should approach it for long-term stability and justice. Thank you for the $5. I'm so dumb. I thought you were moderating a live debate for the past 20 minutes. That's okay. That was Canadian money, so I'll forgive you. We all have problems. Dylan, what happened to you? What does that mean? What do you mean by that? What happened to you? You said that like I said something wrong. Did I say something bleak? Am I dooming and I don't know it?
You know, the populist support was, hey, we're finally going to have access to European markets. We're finally going to make a deal with the European Union. We're finally moving in that direction. And then the leader was like, actually, no, we're going to go back to Russia, get fucked. And as a result,
Mind you, Yanukovych originally agreed in 2012 on the campaign trail to enter the association agreement, and he reversed policy after pressured in the middle of the night. So he reversed on a campaign promise at midnight to repress protests. Then there were protests, which he suppressed violently, and the rest is history. So it's not just that he was doing something the majority of people didn't want. He was also going back on a promise that he made to show that he wasn't, Russia's.
Result of like all the protests and all of the riots and all of this, they have their huge 2014 Euromaidan, and basically what they see in front of them is, oh, it's business as usual. Here comes Russia, there goes Crimea, and now we're back in this world where we're going to be subjugated by Russia. We're not a Western country. We're not even a real country. We're a group of fucking losers who nobody else in the rest of the world wants to help or do anything for. Obama's not doing fuck all for us. Europe isn't doing fuck all for us. And now Russia's fucking with our shit again. And this is a group of people who desperately want their own country, and they want to have a country that they can be a part of, that they can be proud of, that they can have a narrative and a place on the world stage, who slowly see themselves being eaten and consumed by the Soviet Union again. So to look at those people and go like, well, isn't it bad? Like a lot of you guys have died. You should just make peace. Like, that's easy to say as an American with your own country, your own government, your own elected leaders. You have a story, you have all of that. That's a completely separate thing to look at Ukrainians who are bleeding away whole sections of their country while the rest of the world stands by and watches and be like, shouldn't you guys just stop because there's so many of you dying? Like, do you understand how horrible that is? Like, it's such a Western take. Not to say that death is good, but there's something more at play here. There has to be something more at play than just some people dying, because that's what's moved nations and peoples, is more than just like a concern for an individual or even just your family or even just your neighborhood. It's like this cause for an entire country, right?
Can I tell you something?
Yeah, what's up?
I'm not even lying to you.
Mm-hmm.
That was incredibly moving and well done.
Thanks.
No. Well, no. Like, here's the thing. Maybe I'm like, it's not. I mean, your kind of implication that the other end, that my end of this must be. I don't.
Destiny has an easier time than I do, because he's not getting that. You're pretty young. I'm an old whippersnapper. So he just gets that was a moving speech. It was good though. Destiny's getting better at it.
Support Ukrainians is where we have a fundamental disagreement or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but that was well done.
I know that you're not like anti-Ukrainian, and you said that you don't support Russia, so I agree with you. I think sometimes in the West, I think we take for granted all the things that we have, and then we just assume that everybody else has these like same larger narratives and everything. They just want to like not have as many people die for a thing, and it's hard in America. It's really hard to imagine wanting to die for a thing, because for the most part, like, things are pretty good over here. Like, fuck, I don't want to die for anything right now. Like, that's a pretty tall order. But given like a different set of circumstances, maybe.
Yeah. And I don't like. Look, I was talking about this kind of earlier. I was just doing